righty. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome this bunch right here, and welcome everybody watching us now and later to. Well, this is a project that Mr. Eaves came up with. He hit me up about 5 days ago and said they're not doing anything for First Contact on its 25th anniversary. And I'm really thrilled to hear that the Visual Effects Society did indeed have a live event and a screening here in LA last night.
Wonderful.
But yeah, it's been a very underwhelming. There's a lot going on, and then we've got COVID and everything. So I was really happy to kind of cat wrangle this little event tonight and just sit back and let you guys let's go with it. So I was going to say I should, yes.
Before you go too far, people in the chat are asking if you can set it for gallery mode.
I've got.
They can't, evidently.
I'm showing me in gallery mode. People can.
Me too. People are. I suggested they change their own view, but they're all asking.
Don't they?
Okay.
Just bouncing it on.
I don't see us anymore.
Wait.
Wait.
There we are.
There we are.
Yeah, I've got you all in gallery mode. I don't.
Yeah, they have to go to the upper right-hand corner where it says view.
And they're saying that they don't have that because it's in webinar mode.
Oh, okay. I thought I had set it up for gallery. I'm apologizing then. But everybody deserves their own moments of glory. Okay, I'm having it recorded. We've got a gallery camera going. I've got the 3 feeds going. But anyway, we're talking about an hour, and there's so much good stuff here in this group. I just want to jump in. I want to. I mean, let's all get sentimental and I started to say romantic, sentimental about this. And by the way, I'll run around. We've all got biographies. People have all their stuff. I do want to start off by saying, I was going to go in alphabetical order, and I'll save this for last, but I will say everybody's basic department, because whatever you were doing in '96, you've probably been promoted 5 times since then and worked on a ton of shows.
Same thing. Exactly the same thing.
Same here.
Very
okay, or not. So I'm thrilled to have tonight, and John wrangled everybody, so thank you, John. But John Eaves. But we've got Ben Betts, whose field is video engineer now.
Video engineer extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire. Everybody, please, embellish what I'm saying. Dave Blass, who, before you run him out of the room, was not working on First Contact at the time, but is the production designer currently on Picard season 2 and now into season 3.
Boy, are we lucky.
And it's leaked out by a casting announcement that we have a Borg Queen character.
It's even in the trailer. So
yes.
And it's also leaked out that a lot of these folks here are all working on Picard, so that we're all back, and so it's like I'm only here because they're supposed to be working today, so I'm supervising the Zoom.
That's what it is.
Okay.
I'm still at work, as you can tell.
Yeah, this is technically our lunch break. Dave only gives us lunch in the afternoon when it's late.
24-hour shift, yeah. And then we've got the incredible Doug Drexler here. Thank you, Doug. Everybody's worked multiple series. Yes. I just wanted, Doug, is that like, are you the janitor at one of the mental health bases?
That's correct, Larry.
Okay, operations.
I want you to clean up after yourself when you use the toilet, okay? You leave such a mess in there.
Somebody's got to do, well, Federation ideals. We've got to give everybody a job according to what they want to do and better themselves for the rest of humanity. And that's your role, and I'm thrilled.
Thank you.
No, let's see. John, who I've not got to meet until tonight, John Goodson. So it's very great to have you here. Veteran of all the years analog into digital at ILM, and had hands-on with this. And you're coming from a secret, undisclosed naval bunker, otherwise known as the USS Iowa right now, working on.
The Wi-Fi is working well enough that this is all working. I'm really amazed.
That's great. That's great.
John is also the hero of the Starship Enterprise.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
One of a team of people. He's talking about the original series Enterprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
The restoration for the Smithsonian Air and Space.
Yes.
We are so proud of you guys.
I'm so glad that nobody came looking for us after it was done. There wasn't a lynching party or anything like that. Because I remember when the Smithsonian got us together and they said, "You guys are our what do they call it? The consulting group, but you're also our human shields if this all goes wrong." And I'm like, well, that's not very comforting.
Well, that's why we pushed you up to the front.
Well, that spot in the gift shop in the cafeteria was still open if worse came to worse, but that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't going to happen this time. And who am I getting around to? Oh, and then Mike Okuda. I always want to introduce you guys separately because it always becomes Mike and Denise Okuda so often that I want to say Mike Okuda and Denise Okuda, who his exploits in Star Trek and your work for NASA, scenic art, graphics, Nizi, your work with video, all the years across all these series, so many years of Star Trek represented in this whole panel. But I'm just going to cut all that short and say, we were talking about it earlier, just congratulations. The news just came out about this Lifetime Achievement Award from the art directors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So proud of
this
those
came out.
guys.
That's amazing and well-deserved.
That came out of the blue. We just got a call from Clint Schultz, who's the chair of the Scenic Title and Graphic Council, and said, "Hey, guess what?" We said, "What?"
So we are very honored.
That is
Yeah,
amazing.
very, very cool. I was so excited when I saw that pop up today.
Thank you, John. Well, congratulations to you too. You have a Lifetime Achievement Award, right?
Oh, I think that should have gone to 40 other people, but it was
Nah.
it was very nice.
We said the same thing, but
We said the same thing.
And that's the same award that Herman won a few years back, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Award. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I
yes,
remember that
and
night.
Herman was not able to accept, so Doug and I actually went up on stage and accepted on his behalf.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I do not want to forget Mr. Animation back in the day when that was really a pioneering thing. Mr. Jim Van Over is with us tonight. I have to say senior now because your damn son is so popular and all over the place is acting.
He's in the chat even.
Oh, well, that truly all over the place then. Yeah. And very busy at that. And this team, all these people work so well. Everybody watching now and later. So I'm going to throw one thing out here and maybe we can start here because I don't have any fun Chotsky things from First Contact aside from that really excellent, the crew jacket. But
Is that the one that says bring food on the inside?
No, that's later.
Yeah,
That's insurrection.
Insurrection.
I just want to, since we're talking about a movie and people are either coming to it from where they work or you're having to double up from working on the series at the time, Voyager and or DS9. But I've got this great book here. It's a good old fashioned hard copy script with rainbow pages and all that, which, I mean, the movie, this one, here's Star Trek Borg, which is emblematic of how movies develop. But you guys take it from here. As mainly art people, video people, you're hearing about the script, or it's going to happen, you're going to work on it, yada, yada. It's coming to ILM. And it did develop, and there was R&D, and there was one kind of major shift, but it feels like to me of all the movies, the recent movies and the Berman era movies, it's really the one that kind of settled in and clicked in fairly quickly. I mean, there's, people had to do things that were discarded. But you guys talk about what's your memory of first hearing about the movie, seeing the beat sheets, talking to Herman or the producers about what was going to happen. You knew we were going to have a brand new Enterprise, and then go.
When
What was interesting is the movie was called Resurrection. at
Right.
first. And there were Alien 3, 4 was also called Resurrection. So there was kind of a little bit of a battle on the side. And so they took Resurrection and we took First Contact. So that was the very kind of first.
No,
iteration.
actually, before that, it was called Generations 2.
Was it really? Okay.
The very first outlines were Generations 2, and then it became Resurrection, and then
Electric Boogaloo.
that was, and we lobbied hard for that one.
For Electric Boogaloo or for Generation?
The thing about First Contact,
Electric Boogaloo.
you have to remember is that it was what? It was like 1986?
96, 95 into 96. Yeah.
So while that was being planned, we were doing Deep Space Nine and Voyager was going across the way. So there were 3 big Star Trek projects running right on, we called it Star Trek Boulevard. And every department was involved with it. And as I guess Rick Berman and Herman said at the thing last night, that we had such a unique situation because everyone had been together for so long. It was just one big family, and all the, you may go onto movies or TV shows where one department doesn't talk to the other one, or they don't even want to. On Star Trek, it was like this free flow between all the departments that made it so wonderful. So when First Contact happened, it wasn't like we just had this movie coming. we were doing like an episode a week on Deep Space Nine, and it had to have been around the time we did Trials and Tribulations, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Sometime around there, I think. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, it was.
So it was an incredible, amazing time for Star Trek.
And flashback on Voyager for what it's worth. But yeah.
It was an amazing time, and splitting the show was a challenge, especially because Deep Space Nine was a pretty heavy show, and mostly for the graphics. They had graphics galore left and right and left and right.
You were getting
And my task was basically props, and they were mediocre, but they weren't as heavy as what everyone else had. Graphics was unbelievably very deep.
Well, you also had this little ship you had to design.
I was gonna say, yeah.
That was a scary, happy day. When he brought that up.
Oh, you got put through the mill, boy. You did. You must have done 30 different designs for the Enterprise.
Well, the funniest thing is I was drawing it stubby, and then Herman goes, "You know, you can go long. The Enterprise D was designed for TV format. That's why it's short and squatty." It was like a revelation. How cool! We go back to the long nacelle stuff. So all these things I didn't know about, which was, I was new to the art department. So you guys all carried me around.
Remember the version you remember the version you did that was a big chicken?
The big chicken. That was Fritz that saw that.
Like
He was right. When he said it, it was cursed.
Wait. This was a 2D drawing. Does this exist?
Well, we were trying the swept wing idea with the nacelle swept forward, and the top view looked exactly like a Thanksgiving turkey in a pan. And Fritz said that. He goes, "It looks just like a big fat turkey." And Herman saw, and he runs over and he looks and he goes, "My God, it does. Let's change that." And so it went away. It was good too, because when he said it, no, that's all you saw was a turkey.
Well, on the E, we think about the external, but there were all the interiors to do too, right? That's video, that's the sets being designed, and what the palette would be, and all of that. How did anybody jump in on that? What
We were really lucky to have Ben Betts and Larry Marquardt and their team, because we had a whole new Enterprise bridge and not a whole hell of a lot of time. And I know Ben sweated a lot of bullets making that happen.
But it was really nice because, we all knew each other and trusted each other, and we just kind of went with it. And also, Ben was grabbing from here and there. I mean, the budgets on these feature films were minimal. And so we would grab TV assets, right, Ben?
Yeah, and there's also the features were an excuse for us to, at the end of the feature, get some good stuff for the TV show. So it could work both ways.
Yeah. But First Contact was a delightful experience from my memory because of Jonathan Frakes. He's great.
He is just the best guy to work with. Yeah, when I was a makeup artist, I spent a lot of time on stage and in the makeup trailer, and you really get to know the actors, and you're around them at all hours. And Jonathan kept things moving along, even when he wasn't the director. He was so much fun. And then when you got the other guys ignited, I mean, you can imagine Brent Spiner and Michael Dorn and Patrick was kind of stuffy in the beginning, but he ended up being just as wacky as they were. And it didn't matter. The later it went, the funnier it got. And they wouldn't even do a straight rehearsal of a scene. It would be goofy every single time. But when they called action, they were right on the money. But that's how everyone knew each other, respected each other. It was really this amazing family of people.
are you talking about the actors on stage or the art department there, Doug?
Actors. I'm everybody. I'm talking about everybody, but I am talking about the actors.
No, I know. But that's the way. Every time I would come up and visit, or I'd have to do an interview or catch somebody or chase some resource down. You guys had an incredible time up there, and a lot of you worked on other shows and other features, other series. Is that just the pinnacle, or have there? Hopefully, you've had other happy houses, but
there are a lot of productions go up.
I don't want to blabber too much. Somebody else talk.
Well, the Star Trek was a very unique group. I've never ever seen anything like it. Like Doug was saying, all the departments would come together, whether they were on the lot or somewhere else. You could go over and talk to the writers, and they go, "Oh, I didn't think about that." They'll give you notes, and it was all across the board. And they're all jovial and funny and goofy. And then we had John up at ILM, and those guys are magic. I actually have one of his
Oh,
pieces of magic here. So it was my first time I got to meet John. I was a huge fan of his. It was just a circle of fantastic people we got to work with, and every day you were just inspired. Especially what
I
Jim
look forward to
Vanover
going
was
in
doing with
every
his
day.
animation, and he was doing very simple stuff, but he told these complex stories in these very beautiful ways, the warp drive indicators and stuff. It was just unbelievable. And finding the island that they all go into, the escape pods and plot and all that, it was just a remarkable show. And it was also the last Star Trek where we used miniatures. It was actually a mix of miniature and CG, but it was the last miniature movie that we did.
I mean, not to be critical, but the CG that followed, it wasn't up to snuff yet to compete with that physical model that those guys did. You know, there was something flat about it. You know, I mean, CG has gotten to be absolutely amazing. But when you think back, it was still pretty early on as far as generated stuff goes.
Well, First Contact was the first movie to have, I mean, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think there was a really low res, the LaCool was a really low res model in Generations, but the 4 fighting ships that were done for First Contact was really the first time, like the Akira and those 4 were the first time that there was really.
All those were CG, right, John? The little ships in the background during the battle.
I think so. I mean, we got everything shipped up to us, but I think primarily that was digital stuff that was attacking the cube.
Yeah.
The cube was practical. Yeah.
Alex Yeager designed those 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John, talk about what was analog that you all built an analog Enterprise E, right?
We did.
And what else was ILM's part of that?
We built the E, and then we built the Borg cube, the Borg sphere, and then the Cochrane missile, and then the warp ship. And you know, it was a lot of stuff for that show. And the E was particularly difficult. I had a guy doing pattern work on it, and I was busy looking at other stuff, and I wasn't paying attention. And when I got back to what he was doing, some stuff was asymmetric. I've had all kinds of problems, and it cost about 40 days to fix it. So it was a bit of that ship was kind of painful. So but it came out great, but it was kind of painful. The other thing that went on was they wanted to have dimensional rooms so that you could look into the rooms and see depth. And our laser cutter had caught on fire, and we were using that for a lot of that kind of intricate stuff, not the 3D rooms, but things like the window frames. And what we wound up doing, we did a bunch of tests, but ultimately we wound up farming out the laser work, and we had little 1/16 of an inch window frames laser cut, then 32nd of an inch Plex windows cut that would fit into those.
Incredible.
And then behind the windows, what we had was a piece of 1/4 inch plexiglass that was quarter rounded all the way around the back. It was about the size of a matchbook. The perimeter was painted black. Then it had a slide. We took the technical manual for the Enterprise D that was released on CD-ROM and got our still photo department to photograph the rooms. We put those slides in the back of it, some diffusion packing tape, and that became this little piece we fit on the back of it. And that gave us a little bit of depth when we looked into it. Now, I don't know if we ever actually shot a camera test to see if that actually all worked. I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure if what we see on screen is the depth that we had built into the model, or if it was stuff that was done in post by John Knoll. I'm not sure. So, and then
I recognize some of those slides.
Yeah. Well, there were two rooms on the Enterprise that were physical dimensional rooms, and one of them was on the back of the neck. It was like a little arboretum type thing. It had little walkways and bottom lit pools and little trees. And up in the bow, there were 4 long windows up in the bow. And inside that, there was a conference room that was 3-dimensional, had little chairs, and they were purple like they were in the Ready Room on Next Generation. And there were 3 tables, and in the middle of the room, there was a chalk outline on the floor of a body. And so I was at Comic-Con, and somebody said, so we were looking, I think they were working on Insurrection, one of the other films, they had the model. I said, we're looking at the model, and there's a chalk outline in the floor, and you found that, huh? Little in-jokes. Anyway.
It was wonderful. Listen, you guys did amazing work. The work on that was just remarkable. And those days we got to sneak up and watch it. I remember before we went up there, we had that in the script where it said design the Borg cube or the sphere. And at that time you had Starman, the Death Star, all these round ships. And so I thought maybe I could pitch an idea. We do a different shape for the sphere. So I went over to Peter Lawrenson, was one of our producers on the show. And I go, if I could talk to you, man, he goes, yeah, sure, come in. And so I had this big, giant Star Wars Chronicle book. And I go, hey, I was just curious, the round shape is pretty popular with sci-fi. You want to maybe think about a different shape? And he goes, what are you talking about? So I opened that book and showed him the picture of the Death Star. And I don't think anyone will remember that. Yeah. so I walk out and I go, guys, it's going to be a sphere forever. So I wanted to make it true to that. Then I think John was saying that when they were building it, people would come on tour and say, oh, is that the new Death Star?
Yeah. I think UPN was happening at the time, right? And their logo was like a square, a sphere, and a triangle. And so I always thought, and as a matter of fact, later on, I submitted some drawings for a Borg pyramid. That way they could see the UPN logo or UPN.
One of the really early drafts, story outlines, where the movie actually started in present day in Egypt. Someone's excavating one of the pyramids and going over the hieroglyphs and discovers a Borg cube in the sky in the hieroglyphs. So we could have used that.
Oh, cool.
That's actually kind of cool, because there are ancient paintings where there are unidentified things in the sky that look like UFOs, and UFO aficionados always point to those.
They're just the strafing Borg cube in a dimension where that survived. Yeah.
Maybe you have Pharaoh with eyepieces on and wires coming off.
Does anybody remember anything from? I mean, the plot did shift, but things go away. You work on something and it goes away. Does anybody remember something that you worked on that went away? I mean, it feels like the plot, once they put Picard, Riker on the ground and Picard the ship, because it started the other way around. But once, I mean, that feels like and a few things got lost along the way. But does anybody remember working on something that?
One of our other illustrators, a very talented gentleman named Joe Musso, he was responsible for storyboarding the climactic battle on the deflector dish. And originally there was an army of Borg and an army of Starfleet. And as they realized what they needed to tell the story, and of course, as they looked at the budget, he ended up storyboarding it several times, each time with fewer and fewer people. You remember that, John?
I remember that. He was amazing, that Joe. He came from the Hitchcock days of illustrating. And so he would come in and he would call Jonathan up, goes, what ratio are we using? What camera lens? And Jonathan would go, I think I'm going to use a 55 anamorphic and all this stuff. And Joe would have formulas for all of this stuff. And he would just literally draw it out. He wouldn't have templates or anything. He could just draw it, okay, this will be this. And with his dimensional mathematical formulas, from wherever you put the camera, you could figure out exactly how much set you would see, what angle you would need to be visual effects versus practical. It was unbelievable to sit next to this guy and watch him do this stuff.
The old school guys knew how to do that. Remember Harold Michelson was production designer on Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Mm-hmm. And I knew Harold well from Dick Tracy. As a matter of fact, it was Harold who made me want to be in the art department. And I went up to the Tracy art department, and Harold Michelson is doing these, big storyboard drawings. And next to each one, he's got the lens written down. And I'm like, oh, you're not drawing it in the lens. He goes, of course. And it's like, I could not believe that this guy could draw in a particular lens. He actually had a mathematical formula worked out, like John is talking about. But I doubt you get very many storyboard artists today who are putting lenses next to their drawings.
Well, we've been talking about the ships and all that, but inside, you guys, especially all of you that worked in video and animation, what was it like creating the look of the E inside? It wasn't just taking D graphics and putting them in a new palette. I mean, there were a lot of things. What were some of the challenges? And it was a feature, so right, you got to. There were more screens. I remember that progression of from the Excelsior to to the D on its movie version to the E. you know, like more video, and it's coming, you know, and video is getting out of CRTs and flatter eventually, and not till
Yeah,
Enterprise.
we were still CRT at that point.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah. I
all
mean, that was a,
still
but that was a
24/7
curve.
CRTs.
But just having
Yeah.
more live video. What was that? You know,
My favorite display on that in that movie was something. It was Ben Betts and it was Jim Vanover. Behind the captain's chair, you have this big diagram of the Enterprise, which we didn't have big flat screens back then. So we had the Paramount Sign Shop. There was a gentleman whose name I don't recall, but he did this beautiful, intricate silkscreen work. And Ben and Jim figured out how to put the video monitors behind it. And Jim did this animation. You weren't quite sure what was happening, but it looked like there was important, interesting stuff happening inside the ship.
You know what I remember about that cross section of the Enterprise back there? You had asked me to do the cross section, and I spent a lot of time doing it. And I don't remember how many decks it was originally, but it was a fair, you know, when you look at that cross section in the show, the decks are so close together because there's too many decks. We had like half as many decks, and it looked better. The thing was that I guess Herman, in a production meeting, Rick Berman asked how many decks the ship was. And I think Herman said, well, Rick Sternbach said it's this many decks. And Berman said, oh, he did he? And he doubled it on the spot. And you guys came back from the meeting and had to tell me the whole thing had to be done again, which is great because I love doing it. It's not like it's a torture for me, but it was just that one of the things I loved about the cross section you did for the Enterprise D was that, and really there's a lesson to be learned by it because you didn't jam that cross section full of stuff. You just put stuff in important places so that people could still see the decks and you get an idea how big the ship is, you know? Anyway, that's my memory of that, having to redo it all again. Not like it's a horrible.
well, it's canon that it floats between 24 and 26 decks right off the
Well, it's
You know, we did this thing.
5.
Nobody from the script department is here. See, I didn't let Janet come in to, no,
Ben, remind me, didn't we do the same trick in the turbo lifts with the monitor?
We had monitors turned sideways.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember
portrait.
thinking, because it showed the deck and where the turbo lift actually was. We had a little icon of the turbo lift. But when it started moving, we zoomed in. So we see the turbo lift.
That was, I know whose idea that was. It was brilliant.
And that could just loop for as long as we needed it to keep moving. And then as the scene came to the end, you would cue it, and there we were arriving where we were supposed to on the ship in the diagram, as if we knew all along what was going on and how long it would take. And then the actor stands in front of it and no one cares.
Exactly. The cooler the graphic, the less likely it'll be featured or seen.
well, when you get those loser directors that don't even know what's going on with all.
Hey, I gotta tell you, here's my video in that loser director story. The scene where everyone's climbing into the evacuation pods. There was a pod, and the next area pod, there was a monitor showing a map of the Earth, supposedly where they were going to land. And they had a dolly track all along that curved near the end. And if you watch the film, you'll see how it went along and the doors all closed. Before the rehearsal, I climbed over that dolly track and was looking to make sure each of the monitors was set the way it was supposed to be set in their hole. And I was like, 1, 2, and I was about on the third one. And behind me, Jonathan yells, rehearsal, action. And here comes the guy backing up with the dolly. And I'm standing in the middle of the track. So I'm scrambling backwards, trying to stay quiet, trying to stay out of their way. I get to the curve and I trip over the track and I literally landed in Jonathan Frakes' lap. And the dolly stopped right in front of us. And he said, cut, love the video. That was my big moment.
Good times.
You know, one thing that I recall, and Mike and Denise, I'm sure you remember this because I heard it from you first, that they were going to put the bridge on what was originally stage 9, right? On the TOS stage. And all of a sudden we had the keys to the old TOS stages. and we
Okay.
grabbed the blueprint of the floor plan from the original series and ran down there like a bunch of kids, opened it up and went from one corner to the next going, this is where the transporter room was. This is where and we went so far as to build didn't we build a bridge on that stage? It wasn't
did.
First Contact though, was it?
I think it was. I think it was First Contact.
It was built and for some crazy reason, they had to take it all down.
Yeah, it was
and
like
move it to a
stage
different stage.
29, the Arsenio stage.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
moving.
right. That was so
Stage 9
cool.
or 8, stage 8. Originally stage 8. The Desilu stage 8.
It was exciting to go down there. And before Star Trek was on that stage, My Favorite Martian was on that stage.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I think that one of the good things was working for Herman, and he allowed us, even though we were crazy, allowed us to just be ourselves and be very excited about it. I think that one of the great things about Picard and Dave Blass is he loves Star Trek as much as we do, and I think that's really a positive. In any time you work on Star Trek, could have people that really love the material.
You know, when we met Dave Blass, we were like, this guy's one of us.
It is, and it's so funny because the stuff he puts on stage, you know, the actors like LeVar came up to him the other day and gave him a hug. He goes, you got it right. You remember this beautiful stuff.
People
and
are gonna
Picard is
respond.
so big. You know, I wish he would have been with us for all of these things because he was like the unknown missing link back then. And
I did try and sneak in many times to drop off resumes and things of that nature, but I was never that cool. But it's funny how hearing things about like the transporter room or the turbo lift, and you just like on a daily basis, you're sitting there going, well, the turbo lift, you can deal with the lighting guys, and it has like that lighting effect that does this, and then you explain to the guys, okay, well, there's only so many decks that way, and then you got to go this way. So then you got to go this way and then that way, and then you have to then sync that based on the layout of the ship and where you're going. And everyone just looks at you like, no one cares. I'm like, oh, but they do. Oh, but they will.
But
But
will for 50 years.
Yeah, exactly. So and you won't be getting the grief because the transporter room's in the wrong place or something.
But that gives you loyalty as well. When you do it right and people recognize it, you feel like you're in a club. And you don't want to, I think that's part of the reason that the show has lasted as long as it has, because people feel like they could invest themselves into it. Look, we all know because we're all fans and we lived it ourselves. The more you invest yourself in it and the more they stick to those rules, the more dedicated you become to it.
yeah, one of the best things I thought from my little chair is I love Star Trek and I was new to it being on your show, but Mike would come over, they'd put his hand on my shoulder, look over what I'm doing, goes, don't forget, there's a thing called RCS thrusters. Be sure you put those on the side of the ship. Denise would come over, I love Babe the Pig, let's play the music again. Because Babe had just come out and she was an enormous, humongous fan of Babe the Pig, so would play the Babe the song.
We all like it.
And Jim would come out and he would do the same thing. And it was wonderful to have these super knowledgeable people behind you that would come over, and it was great. Everyone had this wonderful feedback and would sneak it in everywhere. It was just fantastic to have that. And the same with working with John up at ILM is, I came from the model shop, but doing sketches was a different world. And they don't always translate to miniature. So we would do study models and pass them back together and stuff. And John would send stuff over, goes, hey, this is not going to work on the drawing. Could we alter this a bit? And so it was really cool to have that collaboration with literally everybody. And like Doug was saying, everyone's heart, was into what they were doing. And I think what made it special is we all were able to share that. Like we could go to the costumes, all this stuff, and all this magical stuff going on. And then there was Herman. He almost didn't believe in the art belonged there because he was always very fancy dressed. He smelled good, and we're just shabby. Well, except for
You smell Herman.
yeah, we were all shabby nobodies. And he'd come in, hello guys, today we're gonna. It was just wonderful. So it was like
And that voice,
greatest thing in the world.
he made a wonderful place to work, and he had a sense of humor. You rarely ever saw him get bent, although we did see him couple of times. Well, we laugh about it now. But yeah, we were so lucky. And there are interviews where Herman says, let's face it, we were so lucky to have a unique, because if you're in the business long enough, you learn that you could go from a place that's like heaven to straight to a place that's like hell. And the only difference are the personalities, that they don't mesh, or you have people that aren't happy. Everybody that we worked with in the art department and in wardrobe, and everyone was happy. We were all having a great time. We were all glad to see each other every day. It was magnificent.
Aside from maybe the day that the actors almost, Patrick and Michael, almost asphyxiated on the first time using the EV suits, maybe. That was a scramble. That was more wardrobe.
We actually,
There was torturing.
That actually happened. We did knock someone out by accident on the deflector dish. It was an extra, or it was not one of the cast members.
Pass out.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. I said, guys, this guy's passing out. Get the helmet off of him.
Well, they had all this problem with the plexiglass fogging up, and we were trying to get a reflection off the. He was doing it. The reason I was there is we had a monitor that showed the status when he turned this lever, and they got the perfect angle, got the reflection right. And I'm like, all right, roll. And they're like, oh crap, it's fogging up. And so someone grabbed the compressed air off the front box, one of these things, and sprayed it quickly into the vent, and it cleared up. We got the shot, and then the guy just fell over.
Wow.
Yeah.
We didn't get the shot. It's in the movie.
Today, you could have a helmet without glass on the front, and they could track it on and track
That's
all the
crazy.
We did that on For All Mankind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John was talking about that all of us get to contribute, even if it's not in our department. My favorite, not in the department contribution on that film was the original draft of the script. The script kept saying, "Oh my God, we have to have Dr. Cochran fly because Vulcans are going to come, because the Vulcans are going to land." And one day, Jim Vanover comes up to me and says, wouldn't it be a lot more dramatic if they just said aliens were coming? And then at that last moment, the Vulcan steps forward and he puts his hood back, and we reveal that it's Vulcans. And I'm going, holy shit, that's brilliant.
But do you remember that on the day, Herman had asked for a plaque with an IDIC logo on it, and they put it on the front door?
I don't.
It was at the last minute it was taken down because everyone realized it blew the joke.
Okay. So I called Ron Moore, the writer, and said, "Hey, don't you think it would be better if we did that?" And Ron said, "Holy shit, why didn't we think that? We'll do that." The next day, we're in a production meeting, and Rick Berman says, "Well, I had an idea. We're gonna."
Well, I think we talked to Herman about this, that part of your job is making them think they thought of it.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the payoff for all that, besides the fun story that I've been getting drinks off of for 20 years, is when I went to see the film, when we all went to see it was it the Chinese, John?
Chinese,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we're sitting back there, and they step off the ship with their hoods on, and you get that view of the bangs, and you could hear the audience start to whisper, Vulcans, Vulcans, Vulcans. It's like it hadn't occurred to them. And I kind of smiled like, oh, good, it worked. And the teller of tales appreciated that reaction.
It's something I keep coming back to. There's the latest generation of fans. Everybody just assumes, well, yeah, First Contact, Vulcans. But it's like, no, that was not established anywhere. That's who our first. We didn't know. It was a surprise. So I was going to say, you guys that were connected to stage. Some of you were like upstairs and could come running down. Ben, you were on stage. I don't know if anybody else is. Anything else like the helmet moment that was scary or funny or something, or was a headache like in the moment? Because any of you could get jerked down to stage to fix something.
Can it be something that took place on the Enterprise E Bridge, but in a later movie?
Oh, sure, Doug.
Because, and this is crazy.
No, it can't.
When
No.
we did Deep Space Nine, they actually put hydraulics on the runabout set. So it really shook around instead of the actors acting. And it literally shook the set to pieces. And it didn't look any better than the actors just going like this.
And the monitors kept flying off.
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. But the thing was that in one of the features, I'm not sure which one it was, they put hydraulics on the bridge. That big set, there were hydraulics on the bridge.
Generations and Nemesis.
We had this conversation, Mike. I know Nemesis. I remember Nemesis being a big deal for that, but you were saying there was another bridge.
It was Generations.
The Enterprise B bridge.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
yeah, in general, but they put things to shape the rails on there, but they had hydraulics on the Enterprise E bridge, and Mike and I went down to take a look at something. And while we were standing there, they tested it. And we live in the earthquake zone, you know what I mean? And that whole giant set lurched to one side. It was crazy. I mean, it was like being for real.
It was terrifying.
It was terrifying. Well, first your earthquake senses tell you to, you know, that this could mean trouble.
Yeah. Hey, John Goodson, do you remember? I'm just thinking, was everything smooth going in the back and forth communication and building models and knowing what, even the digital people doing the baby models of the first CG ships? Or did you guys have any 11th hour change ups or headaches or?
There were a couple things come to mind. One of them was that Rick Sternbach was doing the blueprints for us, and he had drawn the saucer, and then he drew the engineering hull. And then the drawing stopped coming, and I called Rick. I said, "Hey, what's going on?" He goes, "I'm on contact. I'm in Seattle." I'm like, "Well, what about the rest of the ship?" He goes, "Well, I don't know." So we had John scat.
Oh no!
Yikes!
We're losing you, John. We were bragging too much
really
on that.
blocky.
The Vulcans again.
Curtis, the USSIO.
Oh no!
Anyway.
Alan Kobayashi just popped on.
Alan just
I
popped
saw that. Yeah. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan. Where are you?
Hi, Alan.
What is that? Oh, that's his ship.
I think it's abandoned ship.
Oh no.
There's fish in the coffee. Get off the boat.
Okay,
Yeah,
you have
that's
to
the
tell that
famous
story.
sardine story.
It's a
You have to tell that story.
Oh, golly.
John put sardines, and it was first thing in the morning, and we used to get in there at like 6:45, and he thought it would be funny to put sardines in the coffee basket, you know, when we brew it. And you stopped me just before I took my first sip, and I was so pissed. But after a few minutes, we watched Randy the art director, drink his whole cup and not say a word, and we were both laughing at that point. I wasn't mad anymore. As long as someone else is being made a fool of,
No,
I'm
that
okay
was-
with it.
That was leftover model shop humor, and I wasn't ready for art department life yet, so sorry.
Hey, there was another time, John Eaves is like the biggest practical joker on earth. And Fritz Zimmerman was a set designer who sat right across from John. And John came in with a Limburger cheese. And he took all of Fritz's pencils and pushed them through the Limburger cheese. And you know what Limburger cheese smells like. And so all day long, Fritz was like, never mind. You are bad. As a matter of fact, and I'm not going to go too crazy here, but there was another time you had built a box in the ceiling
Yeah.
and filled it with 50 gallons of popcorn, and you hinged the foam panel up there and had a piece of monofilament line. I don't remember if it actually worked exactly the way it was, but I'd come in at like 6:45, and he's up there in the ceiling building a box.
Those were good days.
Am I right or am I right or am I right?
My favorite prank of John's on First Contact was you left memos for Deborah Everton, the wardrobe person. Remember this? That
That weren't
Rick
real?
decided they wanted Borg for the animals as well. That the Borg had somehow assimilated cats and dogs and horses, and she,
You have to make a board suit for
after
a
she
dog.
let off a bunch of steam, angry, what a crazy request.
But
She
that's
had
cited by
started
her.
designing Borg outfits for animals.
Who would sign it from
Still a good
Herman?
idea.
Good
Down
days.
to see that.
Huh.
Dave, maybe you could ask if we could have a dog board on the show.
Dog Borg. Season 3, I think, is like a whole spin-off Dog Borg series. I can talk with the folks. We have a Borg Queen coming up, so we might as well have a dog. I mean, everyone needs a pet, you know.
Somebody did a gag on Enterprise with was it what was the Borg episode of Enterprise, and the little dog, the little wind-up dog, and somebody put a Borg. Anyway, there's some shots of Scott goofing around with this Borg dog and being scared of it. It was it was like Borgified Porthos is what it was. Only it was a little obviously wind-up plastic dog.
I can't believe they didn't do that.
They Borgified Porthos.
We had an interesting area where we worked. We were above the mill, and if we looked out our director's window, we could look over the special effects, but you could also see the orchestra come through, and we'd yell out the window, "Hey, who are you recording with today?" And one of the musicians said, "Well, we're doing First Contact with Jerry Goldsmith today." And you know, we're all young and fearless at that time. And I go, "Doug, we've got to sneak over there. We've got to sneak over there." And so Doug goes, "Mike will never allow me." And I go, "You know, this is your only opportunity. Better go and say sorry later." And so we got the big the lot map out. We went over, we found the recording stage, and a lady named Stephanie ran it. She goes, "Why don't you come on in? You're welcome to listen." And at that time, we met Mark Banning, who was doing the recording for was it Crescendo at those times?
PNP Crescendo.
For Crescendo. And so he goes, "Why don't you guys go sit in these chairs? They're right under the soundboard and no one can see you." And so we snuck under there, we sat down, and we were just looking, we go, "We better get back to work." And at that time, Rick Berman, Brand Braga, and all the brass coming in, they sit right above us.
It's like sinking down.
Mike's gonna kill me. Mike's gonna kill me. And they were in there an hour. We were stuck in these chairs for an hour.
It was like George Costanza under his desk at Yankee Stadium.
And Jerry noticed us out there, and he comes and he goes, "Who are you young men?" We're working the art department. He goes, "Well, why don't you come meet the orchestra?" So he was the nicest guy. And then when we're standing in the hallway, Alexander Courage walks up.
Well, the thing about that was that we didn't know it was Alexander Courage, and Jerry is now conducting the orchestra, and he's on the intercom, and he says, "Hey, Sandy, here it comes." And it was the original series, you know, woven into the, and I'm like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? Is this Alexander Courage?" And I got up and said, "Excuse me, sir." And it was, and I think both of us like fell to our knees.
Mm-hmm. It was the greatest bad thing we ever did. That's all I can do.
Did anybody say a word to you when you got back?
We had stories to tell, so everyone was like enamored, and then the spanking was a lot less. But it was amazing because we found out that Jerry was a Star Trek fan.
Yeah,
we took him artwork and all kinds of stuff, and he was like, and he was talking to Mark Banning. And I forgot what he gave us back, but he gave us a lot of really cool stuff, and just amazing to watch.
You know, I think this score to Planet of the Apes was probably the first movie score that I bought when the movie came out, which was like 68, I guess.
1968.
I played that thing flat. It's still a masterpiece.
Dave, so we all know there's a Borg Queen. Did you actually have to go back and look at, was it helpful to go back and look at First Contact when you're thinking Borg and Borg origins? And I mean, there's
yeah,
I mean, all through Voyager 2 and all that, but we're talking about First Contact.
No, I think that, I mean, First Contact is so iconic. And again, what we're trying to do with Picard is rather than reinventing everything. And it's like, I think that a lot of designers, a lot of people come into a process and say, okay, well, I want to put my stamp on this thing, so I'm going to change it and do my thing. And I'm like, no, I mean, the stamp's been done. These guys have all done the stamp. So my job is to not screw it up and to bring it to life and to bring, improve it, because I think that, like everything else, is technology that has improved over the course of 25 years. And you're sitting there going, okay, well, this is what you could do then. This is what we can do now. How do we improve it and bring it to it? But you're not redoing it, because it's just, I think that there's something so visceral about the character and the way that it was portrayed, and you want to honor that. You don't want to. So I think that that's important for me, is to watch it, look back as a fan, which is what I was when I saw the movie. It's like, what connected me to this character and the design of the things, and maybe cabling and the things, and it's like, okay, these are the things that I loved about this character, and that's what I want to bring to the screen for the new people. And because, you know, I know that there's people who are going to see this version of the Borg Queen first, and they're going to go, wait, now there's a movie 25 years ago that I got to go watch, and it's like, so that's the interesting thing, is like you have to balance the new and the old. So you want to make sure that it's cool for the new audience, but also, you know, people, you're paying homage to the original.
Amen. Thank you,
Super
sir.
important.
Yes. Yeah.
Preach it. Preach it. Yeah.
Well, so all you guys that were, Ben and Jim, you both work in animation and video, but it is a whole different world. We've gone from analog and video and inserts to just make it digital. But is there anything, and everybody chime in on this, I mean, Denise, you did this too. Is there anything from the 90s that was a trick, a shortcut? You were talking about the inserts for the turbo lift. Is there anything like that that's still the little goober tricks like that you did to stretch budget and stretch technology that are still useful, or that you go back and, you know, find yourself going back to? Or is everything just easy now and it's just all, you know, a program to design?
Everything's bigger now. Like monitors are bigger, flatter.
There's
So
a
it's,
make it
it's
cool
more
button.
work for Jim. It's harder.
But
A lot
they're
more
also,
detail, higher resolution.
they're also
harder.
cleaner. If, you know, during the launch sequence of the Phoenix, there's a close-up. There's 2 or 3 close-ups of the monitors, the status monitors, and they're all jaggy and alias because they're on these CRTs back then. Now everything's beautiful to the point where it's really hard to slip Easter eggs in because you'll spot them. They're readable now, you know, and so
Spot
it's
a lot of
a lot
Easter eggs
cleaner.
last night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
goddamn overthrusters in the back of Cochrane's ship.
Exactly.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
See, there was
And-
also in the cockpit an overthruster from Buckley.
Oh, I think that was mine.
Yeah, we had,
Overthruster.
yeah,
Oh, is that what you just said? Okay. Well, we think great minds, you know.
Hey,
John,
hey,
did we, John,
Larry,
John, did we totally lose you there? I think you've been frozen for a bit. This is sad. Okay, we should have taunted the fates when we first had you.
John's here. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, somebody started to say something. Oh, maybe not. Somebody was jumping in just saying when I was trying to talk to John.
I was just gonna say, I've got a still of the overthruster shot if you want to go full screen.
Oh, yes. There we
go.
How do I, let me see.
Yeah, someone in the chat mentioned that they saw a mouse cursor. I don't know if Jim remembers that. I thought which movie it
absolutely,
was.
I remember that from
That was
Voyager.
my fault. And I can't
I'm gonna
believe they
make
used
you a-
that take.
Okay, Jim, I made you a co-host, so you should be able to share.
Okay. How do I do that?
Oh. You have the,
share screen
yeah.
and there. So there's
There it is.
there's the overthruster there.
Look at young
And also,
Jonathan.
my other favorite little hidden thing was Cochrum's CD player. Anthony Fredrickson found this ashtray out of a car dashboard and added stickies and buttons to it.
Oh, you know, speaking of Anthony,
Oh,
on
yeah.
the deflector dish
Right.
where the Borg are putting all those interplexing beacon things in, Anthony made every one of those out of a bird feeder.
Bird feeders.
Yeah.
Yeah, long tubular, modern looking
Yeah,
bird
the king of
feeders.
Kluge. The king of Kluge.
Yeah.
He really was amazing.
Yeah.
Anthony also did that Borg chip that Picard took out of the Borg body. He had these little blinking novelty cigarette lighters that when you turn them on, they had little LEDs on them, which we certainly could have done it with effects, but Anthony just had them. He just glued some stuff to it, and suddenly we had a hero prop that got an extreme close up.
Anthony was quite an amazing talent for
Yes, he
give him
was.
$10 and he could do an entire set.
I
knew
remember
Anthony
since
had
like the 7th grade, and we
Yeah.
did everything together over the years. And he was
Yeah.
always, he saved
Well,
the
I think-
starship a few times.
I think that's one of the things that the flip side of the change in technology, because nowadays everything is 3D printing and this and everyone just starts to default to that. I'm like, but no, you don't have to custom 3D print and do the thing and mold. I'm like, go to Home Depot, just kit bash something and find something that looks like. And I'm like, here's a drain for a sink. Spray paint it silver, put 5 of them next to it, and put some plexi over it, and it will be a thing. And people are like, wait, a drain? I don't understand. I'm like, you know.
The thing
Plus,
about
it'll be a
Anthony
story
is
you
he
can tell
always-
for 50 years. Yeah.
Well, Anthony's collection of greebles and little goodies was amazing. Remember that little storage room back behind your office there?
Mhm.
He had the most amazing collection of just weird little things that he found at 99-cent stores and bottle caps and just the crazy stuff. So like Joe Longo would bring him a block of wood and he would turn it into this amazing thing by just gluing and taping and making some
That's
cool
right.
thing.
Don't forget graphic tape.
Well,
Yeah.
oh
That's a
yeah.
graphic tape.
You know,
guys were
it was funny
kings of
last
graphic
night
tape.
at this screening, when they were asking questions, someone yelled out, "What was the budget for graphic tape?" Because it was famous, what we used to do. And Mike started it all.
Yeah.
He could add thousands of dollars worth of value to a set. We had a caddy of different, weight thicknesses of tape and things like that. And you could run down to the set and Herman counted on it.
Yeah.
But it really was, it was
But
amazing.
the punchline is that we were so tightly budgeted. Almost all the tape we used on that movie, we actually stole from DS9 and Voyager.
As a matter of fact, I remember we went down to look at the Enterprise E bridge, and it was lacking something. We ran and we got the tape caddy, and we made I don't know if it was a 3/4 inch black stripe that went across every console and did little zigs and zags, and it kind of tied everything together. In the next movie, Herman liked it so much he had them routed in. But tape, yeah.
Mm.
Mike, I think that you had originally seen tape being used like in Dark Star or something. You were impressed by what you had seen there.
Probably.
Mm. I thought it was funny because I had to make a little model of the Vulcan lander. It was early drawing days and I had the idea, but I couldn't draw it. So I thought I'm gonna make a model and then I can draw from the model. And I'm working on it, I'm sculpting these little shields. And Anthony walks up and he goes, "Hold a second." And he goes and brings this little toolbox out and he opens it. It's full of curlers and fake fingernails for makeup. And he hands me this little box of fake fingernails, goes, "Use these." And they made these perfect little engine shields around the model. It's like a thing I had never used before. And I used it daily for years after that. It was like that guy,
Resourceful guy.
fun.
If you look at
John,
first,
speaking of the lander, I know in all the source books and things over the years you've talked about that, but what I remember happening in real time was it was the Vulcan lander, and then somewhere between shooting and premiere or right after the premiere, suddenly it was the Taplana Hoth, right? Which
Yeah.
came from Star Trek 3. Did you have a hand in naming that, or because that was like a last minute, or did that come from licensing back to you, or?
No, I actually went over to Ron Moore's office. And I go, this was this particular scene he wrote. And I go, "Do you have a name you want to name this ship?" And I'm just putting Vulcan Lander on the drawings. And he goes, "Let me think about it." And he calls me before I got back to the office. He goes, "Let's name it the Taplana Hoth," after the, I think it was Vulcan Prophet, I believe. And that's where the name came from. So Ron Moore came up with that.
Okay, but it was like, it's never said on screen. It's never in, dialogue.
No, it was just basically because when we were doing the drawings, you put the little title block.
Right.
And I go, "What's this thing really called?" And that's kind of where that came from. We were Ron Moore.
It's one of those
That
things.
great idea.
John Goodson, I hope that doesn't mean like the ships hit bad waters in dock or something.
No, you know what it is? I've come outside because there's better Wi-Fi out here.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just a shadow.
Well, you're sounding good. Do you want to tell? We never heard the story you were telling when we got interrupted.
Yeah, it was just that the drawings from Rick stopped coming, and then we just started. We were just mocking the thing up, and we put a post up. We put a piece of wood up behind it that represented the engine. And I remember calling John and saying, "Hey, we're looking at this thing. Right now, this looks like we're being chased by a 4x4 fence post." And John said, "Well, Herman's, you guys can do what you want, kind of." And John had sent a drawing, and we followed that drawing as the basis for it, and we built that engine. But the strut, Ed Marecki was another model maker. He was staying with me at the time, and I had two 66 Mustangs, and Ed was driving one of those. and there's a chrome detail on the side of the car. And I told Ed, I said, put that on the strut. So if you look at the strut on the E, it's from the 66 Mustang, is what's on there. And then the other thing that happened was the sensor dish changed. After we built the model and we started filming motion control, they kind of got into they changed and they built that set for the deflector dish. So we had to go out with the Enterprise mounted on the motion control stage and cut the sensor dish out and replace one with one that looked like the set piece. So those are the two that come to mind.
Wow.
So anyway.
We were talking about the stages. That's what I found. I found this in some junk book called the Next Gen Companion. The swap out with, I guess Herman and you all had originally designed the dish to be like real size, but then it wouldn't fit a stage. And so the swap out was because 15 was the biggest stage with the 15 was the big stage, and it went from 29 to 15. And I had down here my notes that it was swapping with the bridge so that the dish would fit on the biggest stage with the most ceiling and all that. So but it had to be smaller in circumference.
Well, the dish was on that stage, and then the engineering was on the other half of the stage, but it did go all the way to the big door. The bridge was always over on that side of the lot, though, for first contact.
Mm-hmm.
Larry, unfortunately, I'm going to have to run. They're calling me down to stage. So I gotta make Star Trek.
Okay, we'll have to leave you.
But,
Thanks,
We
Dave.
actually have to go to.
I was going to say we have hit our hour, so everybody's got to go and do things. So, but yes, Dave, go make Star Trek.
Great.
Thank you
Great
guys,
seeing
and
everybody.
happy
Great
first
chat.
contact, and mostly thank you for all these people who inspired me to create Star Trek and inspired so many people to create, because one of the things that gets me is looking at all the fans and all the fan art and things like that they, people are creating in 3D and all this stuff. I'm going, wow, these people are going to be having my job soon, and I love it. So,
Do you give out your Twitter or Instagram or anything, Dave?
yeah, it's I'm easy to find. Dave Blass on Twitter and Dave Blass on Instagram.
Very well.
Dave is an amazing photographer of rock concerts. You've got to check his stuff out.
Mm-hmm. It is remarkable.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Good night, Dave.
Yeah, look forward to
Good
it.
Good night, everyone.
And we can bring to anybody want to say anything closing here, just around the room.
I was just going to mention a group that is kind of forgotten, and that's the construction guys. We had Tom Arp was our construction guy, and he had this incredible team, and he had this one particular carpenter named Cleet Citrone. And this guy, you just told him an idea, and he had a formula for it. And what he did is he went down to Tucson. We were shooting in the missile silo down there at the Titan missile silo. And his job was to make a fake cone that could fit on the real missile without damaging it in any way. And so he came back with his little formulas and his math, and he could construct this cone. And I was actually there when they put it on, and they slowly drop it on, and it went, made this perfect burnt Tupperware sound. When it went on, it didn't leave a mark. This guy did that on every project he was on. I'd never seen.
He was DS9's.
Yeah, and then the paint department was the same way. Any texture you wanted, they could create it, and it was just we had to make marble pillars one time, and so he did this like multiple cold stuff, and then laid plastic wrap on it. When that dried, they peeled it, and that would give you the vein. Just this old school, beautiful style of stuff. And without these guys, we got a lot of inspiration just going down and watching them. But the inspiration that came from the gentleman making the models and the sets and stuff, and then the ILM guy, it was just an amazing world to see all this come together all around you. So wherever you look, you saw this magic. And so
well, and you mentioned Dever Everton. We've got and Bob Blackman did the new dress uniforms and made the tweaks. Mike Westmore and the makeup team. I mean, there were a lot of the TV regulars coming over. We're art centric here in video, but all the departments just did. And the fact that you guys submit most of the team of doing that were people, you're all moonlighting off of one or both of the series too. I know you guys had no sleep those movie years. Nice paychecks, but not much sleep.
great times, great camaraderie.
While we're giving shout outs, we need to give a shout out to our set decorator, John Dwyer.
Yes,
who's a veteran of the original Star Trek series, and he worked on quite a few films: Star Trek 4, 5,
and
7,
6.
9, and 10.
Yeah.
He didn't do 6.
Oh, he didn't? Okay.
But he was always full of stories. Always one of the stories I found most interesting is he's the source of the legend that on the original Enterprise, the letters GN, DN, goes nowhere, does nothing, were on the pipes. Now, I didn't work in the original show, but I've watched every episode. And more than once. And I have never, ever seen the words GN, DN. But in the same year as we did First Contact, 96, we did Trials and Tribulations, where we did recreate that bridge or that ship. And so we invited him to come visit because we figured he deserved it. So he walks down the corridor, the entire length of the corridor, checking out everything, and I'm going, what's he doing? And he comes up to me very with a mock sternness and says, "I didn't see GNDN anywhere." Fortunately, just before he came, I turned to Anthony and said, "Put the words GNDN inside of this cabinet in case he asks." So I led John over to the end of the set, opened the door, and said, "There."
He was fun. He was a big guy too. He was a larger than life guy. A lot of fun.
And great to me when I was always on, deadlines and was having to pull some cool stuff out before it was, out in the ether. Great. Who got it? Who's a lot like Dave and everybody who has a chance to know that this is going to be appreciated. This kind of thing is going to be appreciated 50 years from now and not the typical, promotional playbook of what's going on. So everybody, this has been awesome. I think we should just go ahead and close it down now. But I keep thinking that John Goodson's been thrown overboard or something, but
no, I'm having to hold. I'm right across from.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
Oh,
evergreen.
There's a fair amount of noise. So I'm having to hold the phone to my ear to hear you guys.
Gosh!
Wow!
Well, appreciate your sacrifice, John, for trying to stay up with us.
No, I'm glad I could hang with you guys, but sorry I missed part of it. But thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you for joining us there on location. And thanks to everybody here tonight again. And thanks for everybody. I know it was I'm sorry we couldn't get into gallery mode here for everybody. I know everybody in the chat was talking about that, but we had so many folks here and just not a whole lot of time. And I just wanted to turn it over and let everybody reminisce. That's the word. So it's a great evening. And here, finally, we're going to get First Contact remembered on its between us and the Visual Effects Society. We're going to get First Contact remembered. So thank you all. Thanks everybody here for your work and your continued work on everything in and out of Star Trek. And it's been great.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Good to see you.
Great to see everyone.
We'll get this up. We'll have this up on YouTube pretty soon, everybody. So hang with us. Thanks.
Let us know.
Trek well, everybody.